So the topic this morning is divine intelligence. And what we're up to in this whole process is remembering who we are, remembering that we are expressions of divinity, remembering that God, and that's a loaded term, it really gets in the way of a lot of people's thinking because there's a lot of handbags full of stuff surrounding the use of that term. But for lack of a better one, we'll use it. But it's synonymous with love, with light, with spirit. All of those are synonyms. So what we're up to is actually getting as a notion that there's no doubt in your mind about. There are ideas that we can express sometimes and think we understand, but actually being tuned in to the notion that we are divinity expressing is a leap for many of us because of what our parents and teachers and religionists have fed us over the years that we've been on the planet. And the reason that that's so troublesome is that we think that we're less than we are. We think that we don't really deserve all the goodness that God, Spirit, infinite, unconditional love. I don't want to run through that list of synonyms every time I use the word, so pick one. Goddess, Spirit, all of those are the intention that divinity has for us. And what gets in our way is our thinking. And we think that we aren't what we really are. And one of the things that might help in this process of getting this idea is a little deeper understanding of where we are today in terms of science. You know, there are some, including yours truly, who are left-brain logical turkeys from time to time. And we get all caught up in trying to figure it out and know the rules and understand all of that stuff. And for those of you who are intuitive and already tuned in, my humble apologies. This is a paean to those who are into logical left-brain explanations of science. You've heard it said that with God all things are possible, and that's actually the truth. If you define God as infinite unconditional love, as infinite intelligence, then everything is possible, because infinite has no limit. Quantum physicists will now say that there's a universal mind where all information is stored. And that's nothing new to the Hindus because they've called that the Akasha for 5,000 years. So nothing new there. Einstein referred to it as the mind of God. Scientists today speak of it as the zero-point field, where every conceivable piece of information and intelligence exists as a field. an energetic field. And those into spirituality simply use the term soul. And that's what's inside of us. And if you don't know it, there is intelligence in your body that is not part of your brain. Scientists today have determined that the heart has its own set of neurons which communicate with other parts of the body. So there is mental activity, information exchange going on that has its source at the heart. Who knew that? In fact, it's been determined that more communication goes from the heart to the brain than the other way around. There are more neurons sent to the brain from the heart than there are from the brain to the heart. And what does that suggest? What it suggests is that the heart has traditionally been part of our connection to spirit. We speak of good-hearted people, and we are really suggesting that that is someone well connected with spirit. And what we're up to is actually being comfortable with the idea that we are spirit, that we are divinity, we are light. Scientists have actually determined that the human body creates photons that actually are measurable. And that means photons are an expression of light. So your body has within it light. It has within it access to this 0-point field, the soul, all that is. You have direct access to infinite intelligence. And that means, literally means, that you are solidly, completely connected to divinity. And what can conceivably get in the way of that is your thinking. Your thinking to the contrary. You're saying, oh, well, that may be true for some people, maybe like Jesus and Buddha, but not me. But that's just not what's so. In fact, there's a whole series of books that were discovered in the late 40s, the Nag Hammadi Gospels, which suggest that you are exactly that you are light, that you are an expression of divinity. And this has cast a whole new light onto the field of theology and religiosity and all of those things, because what we know today is much, much different than we were taught 10, 20, 40, 60 years ago. Some of us are that old. One of the things that always got in my way of being tuned into spirit was the story about God, that had God being this figure, this human-like figure who had serious personality defects. Got angry, judged people, found them deficient, sent them to eternal damnation. And I don't know about you, but that's what I was taught. That's what I grew up understanding about the nature of God. And frankly, that's the reason that I became an atheist at the tender age of 16, because I absolutely knew that it couldn't be that. It simply could not be that, and if it was that, I didn't need that. So I was happy to be in the world without being disabled by a belief in that kind of a spiritual entity. But the good news is that we are much more than a physical being. We are directly tied to spirit. Light. Our body emanates light. Our body has intelligence. The heart has intelligence. So the really wonderful news is that we have direct access to the essence of infinite intelligence. What does that suggest? What it suggests is that you have the opportunity to tune yourself to the infinite, to actually be in tune with the infinite. And that has very, very broad implications. What it means is that we have to give up our judgment. We have to give up all of the stuff that we've been carrying around in these duffel bags that we've been carrying for as long as they've been filled by other people's ideas. You see, the thing about this is that there's no intermediary necessary. You don't need an intermediary. You don't need someone to intercede on your behalf. If you read A Course in Miracles, if you read other communications from spiritual masters, you'll see that you have the perfect right to access directly the infinite intelligence, the infinite field that is God, Spirit, Goddess. Pick your name, doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. And what gets in the way is our belief in lack, our belief in limitation. One of the things that I heard a lot around my house when I was growing up was something like, "Who do you think you are?" The other thing I heard a lot of was, "Did you think money grows on trees?" And so I got early education in the notion that money wasn't free and that there were certain limitations, and I wasn't meeting the standards. And who here didn't hear some of that growing up? Almost all of us have been inculcated with that kind of notion. And it stands directly in opposition to the current science. It stands in opposition to what Jesus had to say in the Course in Miracles, the Course in Love, and the Way of Mastery, and all the other methods in which he communicates with us today. So the opportunity is, I can do this. I can do this. And what is this? This is simply latching on to the idea that you have the perfect right, the opportunity to tie in your mind with divine mind, direct access to the intelligence field. That's an information field. It's just like the internet. Anybody can go online and go anywhere on the World Wide Web. And the same is true of this field. Anyone has the opportunity, the access point, to tune in to infinite intelligence. So in order to do that, there are some guidelines. And the first is to remember that everything begins with you. This field exists. This field is. In Craig's meditation this morning, God is. Goddess is. Spirit is. This field is. You don't have to go somewhere to find it. You have to be open and receptive to receive it because it is here. So everything begins with you. You are the junction point. Your willingness to tune into the field is everything. The next idea to keep in mind, as within, so without. So what you take into your consciousness, what you take into your belief system, manifests in the outward experiences that you have in your life. It's just the way it is. Because your mind, your thinking is creative. So if there's room in your life for a little improvement, just saying, what's necessary is to open the door by accepting that you have the right to access this field, and then allowing that field to displace all of the stuff that you've accumulated over a lifetime, perhaps many lifetimes. Another thing to remember is that buried emotions never die. So if you're nurturing some grievance, some judgmental experience that you've had, it isn't going to go away until you look at it and let it dissipate. And you do that by tuning in to the field and allowing judgment to dissipate. And the last thing to remember is that all is one, just like we sang in the chant this morning. Everything is one. There is no distinction. There are simply different forms of divinity expressing in the world. There is no demon in the world. There are only angels. Sometimes angels step forward and say, oh, I'll take on that role. And they put on a cape that makes them look like a villain for the purpose of creating an opportunity for forgiveness. And that's all that ever happens, is an opportunity for some being to learn forgiveness. You can't learn about forgiveness if everybody around you is expressing only love. What is there to forgive? When someone loves you so much that they would deliberately do something that's seriously out of their character so that you might have the opportunity to experience frustration and anger and rage and to learn what forgiveness really is like, is a gift. Someone loved you so much that they said, oh, I'll do that. And if you could hear what they really said, they would say, but please don't forget that I'm taking on this role because I love you, not because I don't like you. I love you so much that I'm taking on this role of villain, of mean, ornery person, for the very purpose of helping you to understand what forgiveness is, and to literally understand that we are all one. So we have this opportunity, and the question is always, 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 what do we do with it? Do we take it in? Do we just listen here and say, ah, that sounds pretty good, and then this afternoon you go on about your way and you get caught up in life and living and all of the things that seem to get in the way, and pretty soon you've figured out that you've forgotten. You've forgotten who you are. You've forgotten what you're up to. You've forgotten that you really are divinity expressing, that you really are a source of light. Your mission is to bring forth the light that already exists inside of you. And you do that by being totally, completely comfortable with the notion that you are divinity, as are all other beings. And what we get is an opportunity to share who we really are, to share the divine intelligence that is within us. So, it's up to you. I can't do it for you. Open mic time.